You started with, was that right? $500? Did I hear that right?
I probably started with like a $200 Robinhood account.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Welcome back everyone to Be The Trader. Today I have a very special episode for you and an awesome guest, 7 Points Capital, Trevor. Trevor is joining us today. If you don't know who he is, then just check him out on Twitter. He's going to be giving out his handle. His handle will be down below as well in the link. Check him out there. He provides a lot of good content, and he's been a very successful trader. We're at his place today, and he invited us in, so thank you so much, my man, and welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked you guys were able to come out.
Absolutely.
How you liking Arizona so far?
I love it over here.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, it's winter, and
yeah.
we're outside. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt.
Right. it's good for a couple months out of the year, and then everyone is
oh my God,
is all up in arms about the frying eggs on the streets and stuff. But
because I know it gets hot.
Yeah, it gets real hot, but it's yeah, we enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, for people who don't know your backstory, Trevor, if you could just kind of shed some light on, what got you in this world of trading to begin with? Like, how did it start?
So let me give you a little backstory.
Sure.
I've always been kind of a big addictive personality. And so as a kid, I turned to, not so great things as, with that, addictive personality. And, I'll spare you any details, but I had struggles with a lot of drugs as a kid.
Sure.
And, overcoming that, taught me, I got sober when I was 21, and overcoming that, I learned a lot about myself, and being able to use that addictive personality or that magnifying mind to my advantage. And I just had to focus on things that were good for me.
Yeah.
Right. And, there was a lot of ups and downs with all that, a lot of failures, amongst just getting sober itself, and then, figuring out life after that. I'm 21, I haven't done anything with my life, what do I do? And I fell into fitness.
Yes.
And from there, I started a personal training company, and then I got hired to actually work with recovering alcoholics and addicts.
Yeah.
At a few different rehabilitation programs, and that was a really great experience. I was able to get a lot of business experience, and then also just connect with people. But as I went on, I kind of knew that it was always kind of a means to an end. Mm-hmm. I knew I didn't want to be a personal trainer the rest of my life. It's just not what I envisioned myself doing, and it's it's pretty capped on how far you can go. And then from there, I started reading business books, and I just kind of fell upon. Have you read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Of course,
I mean, who hasn't?
Oh my God, that sets you on the path. Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our great sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you could just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the broker for short sellers. If you're a short seller and you're looking for the best borrows and the best service in the market, look no further. It's why I use them every single day and why I'm happy to have them as a sponsor. So make sure to click on the link below to learn more about Cobra Trading. And now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those entryways into this new world where I was just like, I have no idea about any of this stuff. And that just that got my addictive personality. Like, I was just like, my magnifying mind was just like, okay, I don't know, but it's just so interesting to me because it's this world, where, kind of having this epiphany of what capitalism is, essentially, right? And how you can position yourself into, into this world in in a positive way. And it was just kind of set from there. I downloaded Robinhood. I watched all the movies I could.
What year was this?
So I first opened up my first brokerage account in 2015.
Okay.
And from there it was just on running. I think my very first trade I made, I Googled penny stocks to trade because I had found those gave the best returns, and I found StockTwits immediately. and that brought me into this whole world of chat room trading and pumping and just, you know, in the small cap, you know, grimy world that it is. And like, I just kind of like immediately fell into it. And my first trade was on DCTH. I don't know if you know the symbol, but I'm pretty sure they're delisted or they relisted again. And I made like 200 or 300% on the first trade. I was up 200, 300%, and I'm like, oh, dude, this shit is easy. But then, you know how the story goes, right? And so, and then, you know, that's basically, you know, in a very tight nutshell of how I got into it.
So let's continue though, because your first trade you did well, right? And then you know how it ends from there. Like it's you know, start to realize that maybe it was luck, maybe it was just whatever it may be, and you start to lose. How long did it take you to kind of get on the bicycle and actually ride with balance? You know what I'm saying? Like how long did it take you from there?
So I would say from there it took me, you know, I'm just trading based off of what I see on StockTwits and what, you know, people are, you know, the hype that's around social media or whatever I can Google search. It wasn't until, and I had joined a paid chat room where a guy would trade on voice, and I actually have to give credit to the guy. Well, I'm not going to say his name, but he, even though he was an alert room, he was very organized. He was on the voice chat at like, you know, at whatever, 8:30, you know, New York time, every single morning doing like a pre-market thing. And he, you know, he was very disciplined. And so I picked up on that. But then I found a free chat room where I met a good buddy of mine, TJ, who runs this chat room called United Traders. And I just traded on voice with them every single day.
Really?
I was still working as a personal trainer. But I had worked it with this place where my hours were like, basically I was only in their gyms for a few hours a day. And so I got to trade most of the market hours. And I wasn't trading with anything at all, you know, just a few $100 at a time possibly in the beginning. But I would just trade on voice with these guys. And, you know, this guy, TJ, had kind of turned into a mentor of me. He lives up in Canada, and his dad was a trader, and he's just an epic, really good trader, and he just runs this room for free. And he was this guy who would just message me out of the blue, hey, how you doing? So I was that just set my learning curve off, you know, like quickly. Like like anything I have is from other people. You know what I mean? Like nothing I have is unique. I was very fortunate to like fall into the hands of some good traders early on. And so like, I think that's probably like what really like got my like, you know, the motion set.
You know, first off, awesome that you were able to overcome and become sober. So congrats on that, man.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And I love that you said that you have an addictive personality and you started there, because there's a lot of people listening to this who might have an addictive personality. I know I definitely do.
Yeah.
And how you're showing that you're using it for something that's going to help you grow and become better, which you have done, and how you're channeling that energy. You know, like that's really awesome to hear. But on top of that, you said that you met you're trading and chatting at the exact same time, or voice. Can you explain? Because there's two sides of that coin, right? Obviously, it worked out really well, right? But there's two sides of that coin where, you know, that could be, you know, influence in a negative way and also influence in a positive way. So I'm curious on like how, whenever you were doing that, like what was really helpful? Like what was it? What was it just like just, hey, this is what I'm doing, so I'm going to do it too? Or how was it helpful? You know what I'm saying?
So I think the number one thing is like just seeing people in action. Live action is like for me, like I'm not someone who's writing DMs on Twitter asking a million questions. I'm a good observer. I think maybe it's probably due to like can be a little bit socially awkward and like a little shy, so I don't like want to like reach out, but I'm really good at observing people. So I just one of the things that motivates me is when I see people being super disciplined and like being successful, right? And so, and I'll give an example of that later on.
Cool.
But if we get to it, but so literally just having that live action around me, and then you know, as you're being an observer, you kind of like, you're able to like pick up on the things that like work and don't work.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, maybe, you know, so-and-so gets excited about a trade, right? And you're like kind of observing like their emotional response to like what they see in a setup, right? And then like the result of that setup. And, you know, okay, this person was real excited about this. And like those were a lot of like the things that I really picked up on when I was listening to experienced traders, or, you know, even newer traders over voices. Okay, like this is like, it's not just like, you know, their entries and exits and stuff. It's like, how are they responding to the, you know, the market information?
Yeah.
And I think this like picking up on like, you know, people's emotional responses like really helped me like understand like, okay, like if I'm feeling real excited about a trade, I can't sleep the next night. Like I realize like that, you know, everyone else kind of struggles in that area too. Like maybe like, you know, my emotions are what are getting in my way too. And so like there's a million different things, but you not only pick up on, you know, what to do, but plenty of things of what not to do. You know, I can't, you know, there plenty of new traders who would enter, you know, and, you know, blow up their account within a day, or, you know, just come in just to pump a stock or whatever. But I was definitely like kind of born into this like chat room trading world, and just kind of thrown into it. And so like but you know, there's so many people and so many like so much stuff being said and flown around that like you almost immediately have to learn how to sift through the bullshit. And if you don't, you just end up falling for everything. And and that's just not going to work out. And so like you almost have to like approach it, you know, those types of situations with like a hard amount of skepticism, or you know, or just you know, with a grain of salt, you know.
Can I ask you something? Because you said something that really stood out to me. You said, not only did I see when a quote unquote maybe a good trader see something that they really liked how they acted versus someone who wasn't, you know, maybe newer, and they saw it and how they acted, and you saw the differences and what in the end result was. Can you highlight on like what that difference is, if anything stands out in that instance?
Absolutely. I mean, so I mean, you take an experienced trader, for example, and you know, someone who would say like, you know, oh, you know, I have, you know, this position on, you know, with you know, this size, or you know, I just covered this amount of this position or whatever, and like, you know, they're pretty like melancholy about it when they just made, you know, a $50,000 trade or something like that, right? And like to me, that's like, you know, with a $500 account, I'm like, what the, like 50, like you and like seeing on the chart, like, man, they were down like 12 to 15,000, like what? Like I can't imagine losing that much money, but then like realizing like, okay, these people like aren't affected by this, like for some reason, and then you know watch a newer trader who you know is getting, you know, obviously like very emotionally built up about like, you know, a trade that they see, and they, you know, impulsively just like get in without like, oh, this is flagging, just, you know, get in no matter what, and not really like having like a good like basis behind their trade, or you know, a good thesis behind their trade, or they just seem to be completely blinded by a rush of excitement, you know. And so, excitement is like one of the number one killer, at least for me, in approaching any trade. So
it's interesting you said that. You said like one's mellow and laid back and doesn't really get affected one way or the other, it seems like. And it also seems like they're slowing down, right, before they just jump. Whereas the excitement makes someone just rush into something. Yeah,
there's certainly a good amount of critical thinking that goes into an experienced trader's like approach versus like someone who just like sees, you know, something, you know, sees a wedge and just, you know, or, you know, whatever it may be, and just jumps on it based on one variable.
And you also said that you started with, was that right? $500? Did I hear that right?
I probably started with like a $200 Robinhood account.
Really, really. And then tell me how long did it take you to you said you were in that room and you started to chat on voice and started to kind of get some bearings, learn some things. How long did it take you to get consistent? And then how long did it take you from there to, you know, join 7 Points and then go from there?
So I would say from 2016 to 2018 was like pretty like rocky. It was, you know, I would take 2 steps forward, 5 steps back type of thing.
Yep.
And probably blew up 4 or 5 accounts.
Yep.
I was introduced to, I started shorting. Actually, I don't know if you know what TradeNet is.
I heard of it, yeah.
It's a CFD broker. They're not really like supposed to operate in the US, but I used them, and because I was under PDT and I wanted to learn to short.
Yep.
Anyways, I blew up that account pretty quickly. And I had gotten another one with them, but and so that was probably like 2018. And then you know, just multiple accounts blowing up and down. And then I finally started finding consistency. End of 2017, like mid 2018, it was like really like, I hadn't blown up an account in like 6 months. I had like, you know, I'd build up, you know, up 50%, and then I'm back down to like where I started type of thing. And then 2018 was when I really started taking journaling and you know, taking my performance and metrics like really seriously, like everything outside of the market seriously, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I started working on my head a lot more in terms of like, you know, I would write down not just, you know, my entries and exits in my journal anymore. It was more of like, okay, like how did I feel when I entered this? And that was really like a big, when I started to like take that mental approach versus just like, I just need to be in the chair approach, things started to change.
Really?
Right? Like I just like, I not only like do, because like sitting in the chair, you learn the patterns on the screen, right? But like you're not learning the patterns in your head, or the patterns of your own behavior.
Give an example of that too.
So for instance, like when I first started journaling, I would just write like, oh, I panic sold. Oh, stop. And I would beat myself up, you know, like you're a piece of shit. You know, you learn, you know, not to sell, you know, until your target hits or whatever. But then I started breaking it down. It's like, okay, like what was I thinking beforehand? It's like, oh, I was thinking like, okay, this is at high of day, this other thing is running, and so like that, you know, same sector, and started trying to like piece things together. And it's like, oh, I got in this like for completely the wrong reasons, right? I think I'm working towards, you know, I think I'm applying my process, but really my process is based on like my emotional decision making, and not like the process itself, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And what's very interesting is that, so like when you start to see more progress, or more progress towards your trading, where you weren't no longer blowing up, you were just like kind of making some, maybe coming back down a little bit, kind of like treading water, if you will. And then when you took journaling more seriously on your mindset, is when you start to see like more faster growth.
Exactly.
Right? What exactly, besides what you were feeling before you got in the trade, were you actually tracking? Because I know a lot of people are probably hearing you say this, and they're probably like, well, I've blown up 5 accounts. I track my trades, but what do you mean when you journal specifically? Like, can you give me an example from today, like a trade you took, and like what do you like in terms of just how you journal from the beginning to end?
Yeah, so the number one thing, actually what I do, like I call it a report card, right? And I'm sure you know from Bellafiore, his report card thing, and that's yet another thing that I've taken from another experienced trader, and just like built into my own. And so I give myself a daily score, just an overall score, and then an individual score on each trade.
Okay.
And so it's just A, B, C, D, E, F, or A,
like
B,
regular
C, D,
grades.
F, right.
Okay.
And then I you know, I have all like the metric stuff on TradingView and whatnot. And so I this is strictly for what went on with me.
Okay.
And it starts off with, you know, my daily routine. Did I follow my daily routine? Were there, you know, were there any parts of my routine that I decided to skip today?
What is that? What do you mean your daily routine?
So my daily routine just is basically I just wake up, go downstairs, play with my cat, drink some coffee, and then I meditate.
Nice.
And
We're meditate brothers every morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
So meditation was another thing that I included on top of journaling that like really just like helped me like kind of get back on that trajectory of like just consistency and profitability.
Nice.
And so I would definitely say I owe a lot of my success to just like being able to slow down, meditate, and imagery. Really like focusing on like that's part of my my routine. I don't know if you've read the newest Market Wizards book, but there's
no, I haven't.
It's highly recommended.
Okay.
Jack Schwager picked some amazing futures traders in the beginning of that book that talk about what imagery and meditation, and that really solidified it for me like recently in terms of like using imagery with my trading.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
So I sit down in the morning. I do just a quick couple-minute meditation, just to clear my head. It's just some breathing techniques. Yep. And then I kind of scan the market, and then I kind of walk away from my desk and just imagine like every scenario possible, right? What if I get jammed up at the open, yep. right? I've been jammed up before.
Yeah, true.
Right? And so like it's just emotionally preparing myself. I like to think of it as like, just like keeping my heart rate at bay.
Yeah.
Almost, because like the second that starts to spike, like
yeah.
I know like I'm out of my comfort zone. And so it's just listening to yourself, man.
Dude, I love that. I mean? Yeah.
And
what you're doing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what you're doing is so I just started doing, it's funny you bring up the whole idea of visualization, because I just started adding that to my meditation, but not in this way, but I love that you do it this way, because now I want to try it, because what you're doing is you're visualizing all these scenarios, because they all have happened at one point in our life. Yeah. And then I'm sure I interrupted you because I'm not trying to be rude, but you said, I'm sure you're also visualizing how you're going to react to when that happens. Right. So that way when it does happen, you're not reacting anymore out of emotion because you planned it out.
I never want to be surprised.
I love it. Like, if you're listening to this, like, you probably don't know how important that is, what he just said, but you need to go rewind and listen to it again, because that right there, if you haven't been training for over like a year, you probably like, that doesn't matter. But if you've been training for more than a year, like, I need to try this. Yeah. You definitely need to try it. Yeah. Go ahead, my bad.
No, I think it's really important. It's something that's not only, I talk about like having, that addictive personality and like that, having so much focus on one thing can like create imbalances in your life, and having meditation and breathing and just and walking yourself through your day or your trades in your head before it all goes down is like is such a good way to like keep yourself even keeled. Yes. Right. I never want to get in a position where I think I'm too good or I'm not good enough. Gotcha. Right. Like I just want to be a participant of the market, and the meditation just allows me to just recognize that every single morning, because sometimes I can get that twisted if I'm on a good run. Yes. I can think like I know more than I do, and then if if market's slow or I'm just not really like hitting the trades I should be, or whatever. I can think like, maybe I've lost it. I don't have an edge, which is like such a dangerous road to go down. Like losing confidence. Yeah, losing confidence in yourself is like one of the worst things you can do as a trader, right? As you know, I'm sure. Yes. And so it's I look at every day as like a search and destroy mission of my trading faults, right? Of my emotional faults, right? And so like that's all meditation is doing for me, is like looking for those like potential faults, constantly like Mark Douglas has, I don't know if you know Trading in the Zone, his principles, he talks about constantly monitoring your susceptibility to make mistakes, right? Yes. And if you can do that, like you can avoid mistakes, right? And so, or avoid big ones.
Yes.
And so you're always going to make mistakes, but it's just another tool in the toolbox that and it helps me in life too.
And I interrupted you earlier, but I want you to continue on so you meditate. Mm-hmm. Then you look at the charts and you meditate and visualize what happens. Mm-hmm. So is that the routine that you're grading yourself in your journal? Is that what you mean?
Essentially, and then step by step is like, did I take this trade on based on impulse? Was it emotional? And that's exactly what I'm grading it on, not by P&L.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
P&L is just P&L.
Okay.
That's just that I can look at that on my equity curve if I want to. But I have to create, an emotional curve to look at, right? Like, and I always want to try and stay on like an emotional baseline. I never want to get too far up or down, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's just, I want to create the best, like vehicle for myself, to trade it based off of.
A buddy of mine, his name's Scott, he's been trading for like, 30 years. It surprises me that when I talk to him, he'll be like, I just had a phenomenal day yesterday, mm-hmm. so I'm gonna downsize today. And he'll tell me that. And he's been trading forever, but he knows himself.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, yeah, I downsize a lot because I don't really need to force it, and I can tell I'm happy and excited.
Right.
So I may trade different.
Yeah. And when you tell yourself that you're not gonna force it, then like, and a good opportunity comes and it just naturally happens, versus like thinking like, oh, I just killed it yesterday, I better kill it today.
People don't get that.
Right.
You just hit it on the head because so many people are going to do a good trade.
Absolutely, man.
And then see everything as the next best trade.
Yeah. Yeah, that's back to where that finding those faults in yourself and not just your execution, but like what's deeper, what's going on with you. Like you had bad execution, but you have a process, right? And so like if you have a process but your execution's off, obviously you have to dig deeper into yourself. And most of my trading faults are going to come from in here, and so I have to figure that out before anything else.
So I want to ask you this because I know I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to get into some of these things. So you joined 7 Points, right?
Yeah, September 2019.
And does anything change? Like, do you notice anything in yourself that changes once you join 7 Points? Is it anything different?
So back to that, what I was talking about earlier about like being around people and being like motivated by other people's discipline and stuff. I knew I wanted to get with a firm kind of in the beginning of 2019. I had applied to SMB a couple times, got denied a couple times. And then, I had reached out to Mike, and that was a real long process. But I knew if I could get around guys that had been doing it for a long time and like be like physically around them and just learn that from them and be able to, just pick their brains whenever I wanted, that I knew if I could do that, I could put myself on a path to the next level.
Yes.
And so in beginning of 2019, I decided, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm gonna go all in, because I knew I couldn't be 1 foot in and 1 foot in the personal training thing anymore. It just wasn't gonna work. So I knew that. I started applying. I started just making sure I was tracking every single thing so that I had data to show and everything. And about summer hits, and the house I was living in, and I was living in California at the time, and I was living with a buddy, and he was going to sell the house. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to move to Arizona, live with my parents for a summer, and just try and just get hired somewhere. And so I moved in with my parents when I was 27 years old, which is a humbling experience. But I just knew that this is what I wanted to do, and this is like where I wanted to be, or what I wanted to work towards. And so I had seen Mike Katz actually post on Twitter one time, like, hey, we're hiring for the New York office. And I was like, I'll fucking move anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll do whatever it takes. So I just quit my job. I'm leaving my parents' house. I'll go wherever. And so I messaged him and kind of got the cold shoulder a little bit. Like, it looks like you're on the right path, but, you know, it's trading real small, you know. And he was like, why don't you just message me every week, you know, stay in touch with me. And that was like my golden ticket. I was like, oh, you want me to stay in touch with you? And that was, he was probably a mistake for him, because every Friday for the longest time, I would email him an update on my week, just charts, full breakdown of like what I did. And he probably didn't read a lot of them, or I don't know if he read any of them, but one day I decided, I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna go get my SIE. I studied for that and sent that to him, and he was like, oh, that he saw that and was like, okay, maybe this kid is serious. Like, all right. And he set up a phone call with Nico, and it wasn't, I'll be honest, that interview didn't go the greatest, because it sounded like he had already hired people, and like I was like one out of a ton of people that applied. But last minute they took me in, you know, right before like the San Diego office opened. So it was and it sounds silly, but that was like actually a very emotional point in my life, because I was like, I had accomplished something that like I was working so hard for. And it was really just to get, you know, just to get my foot in the door. And that's all I knew. That's all I needed to do.
And so you got your foot in the door. I
got my foot in the door, and then you know, I remember this was probably around January 2020. Stan, Krishna, and a couple other guys, Riley, who's another manager at 7 Points, who you know, I've all been able to become close with, but you know, I got to trade with them, you know, around them in San Diego together. And I remember like the first day I was sitting next to Stan, I had like my best day ever. And then from there, it was just like, you know, me and him were sitting next to each other, and we were trading the same stock, and he's got like 10 times the size that I've got. And I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, like I just need to add a little bit more, right? And and then, you know, I had my best day that day, and it just like, it slowly started to click. I'm like, okay, like the opportunity, like I came here for a reason, and that is to excel. And so like, I'm gonna start, like I have the consistency, I have these numbers behind me, like I just need to like show that I have the balls, right? And like, and show that like, you know, I have what it takes to excel in this very fleeting business, right? You know, I posted something the other day about from one of the Market Wizards books. Paul Tudor Jones talks about. He says like, you know, I'm very aware of how ephemeral the, you know, successes in this business, right, is how fleeting it can be, right? And so being around all these guys who've been doing it for so long, and seeing what they do was just like such a boost for me, like knowing like, okay, like this can work, like, and I can do this for a long time, as long as I continue to like follow the people that have done it before me. Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So. And everyone who's watching, if you're like, who's Krishna, who's Stan, they've been on the show before, go check that episode out. We'll have links below. Great guys, great traders. But look, man, I'm gonna have to bring you back on the show, because I can already tell like we're just scratching the surface right now, and I'm just like, no, like there's so much more, right? But let me ask you two more questions, and we'll wrap this up. If knowing what you know right now, okay, let's say you can go back to 2018. That was, I think, if I remember correctly, that's when you were kind of finding some success, but kind of treading water, but no longer blowing up. Right. But let's just say there was no such thing as a prop firm. But you could go back now with that experience that you have currently and go give yourself some advice. What would you tell yourself to help you get to that next level if there was no other door? Because there's some people out there who might not have a door, right? They might not have that option.
Yeah, and I think you know, trading's a funny thing because it's, you know, you don't need a firm, you don't need all those things. It's just the path that I had decided to go down. But if I were to tell myself something back then that I know now is go slow, and anything can happen. I think one of the biggest like attitude shifts I had was, you know, I mentioned trading in the zone earlier. That was a big pivotal moment of learning in my trading career. But adopting the attitude like that, anything can happen, good or bad, right? And so like you just need to make yourself available, right? And as long as like you continue to make yourself available and put in all the work outside of those market hours, like you're gonna make it work. And like just believe in yourself. Like if you can invest like because you have a certain amount of energy every day, you have a certain amount of belief every day. If you can invest all of that into you and what's in front of you, there's no way you fail, right, over time. And so it's just, I think, you know, having that inner belief and just, you know,
okay.
Well, you know.
What's been your biggest, and it could be recent, but what's been like your biggest like challenge that when you finally got over really stepped it up a notch for you? You know what I'm saying? Like you could be when you were consistent, there was just something that was kind of you didn't know how bad it was holding you back until you overcome it. You know what I'm saying? Or it could have been earlier.
I think the number one thing is quieting the noise for me. Like I used to fall for, you know, all the hype, social, whatever, you know, you know, and I would allow price action to get me excited, and the second I started slowing down and kind of like taking a step back and getting like a bird's eye perspective of like, okay, like this is how I respond naturally to you know, this market information. Like maybe I need to take a step back and like think before I jump in, right? Maybe I nibble, right? And see how it goes. And like, so like the idea of scaling in and scaling out, you know, those little things and how you execute it, and you know what percentages you put where, really like allow you to like kind of like you know, pick it, like decide like what's working, what's not, if that makes sense. Like sift through all of the bullshit, and not only like in, you know, outside of the market, but like that's in your head as well.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Now, so slowing things down, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I'm nowhere near you, okay? But I will say is that like meditation has helped me a lot.
It's huge,
and I have a personality. I can get very emotional, right? And so that meditation has helped me recognize that. And here's the thing about meditation, I'm sure you agree, but like it doesn't get rid of it. It's just more of like I can see it now happening, and then now I can like say, okay, I'm frustrated. I can make a decision, you know, instead of just letting it take over.
Yeah, I mean, we're humans, and like I don't think you ever become an emotionless robot.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times where I'll you know, I'll be like, you know, I'll get, you know, fist, you know, I'll do the old tiger swing, and I'm like, yes, you know, but how fast you come back to that emotional baseline is like so important. You know, it's I can remember, you know, when I made my first like $10,000 day. You know, back in the day, and like I was all jazzed up, and I would call, you know, my dad, and you know, call everyone, and like letting the world know. And now it's just, you know, it's just another day at work, right? And so like it doesn't matter necessarily the outcome anymore. It's just, you know, again, like making myself available and taking what I can, right? And not letting it affect the rest of my day, right?
Yes.
One of the biggest things I've learned, you know, getting married and you know, being in a relationship and stuff, is like you can't carry that stuff with you, and the more you do, the more detriment it is to your next day, right?
Yes.
And so I think you know, all those things we touched on with meditation and imagery help that.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, look, Trevor, I appreciate you being here, man. I want you to do me a solid. Let people know, like, if they want to find you, where they can find you or get information.
Yeah, I'm just on Twitter at @KillerT_, and that's basically all I use.
Cool,
so.
Cool. So again, everyone, check him out. I'll have a link to his Twitter below. And again, Trevor, thank you so much, man, for sharing some of your wisdom, brother.
Absolutely, it was great being here.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.